Right now, my internet service provider could be watching me. Not my data, but my actual body. They don't need to use cameras or microphones. They could watch me move around my home with just the Wi-Fi signal. Creepy. What began as academic research has quietly gone commercial.
Today, Wi-Fi sensing is built into routers and smart home devices shipped by most major ISPs. This is just one of the many spying abilities the router you invited into your home has. Your internet service provider knows every website you visited today, how long you spent on each one. It even knows where you are physically as you're watching this video.
Here's how it works and why it's about to get worse. So this is your router, and this string represents every device that connects to it, and also every potential source of data you're giving to it.
At first, these strings represent the obvious things: your smart TV, your iPhone, your laptop, your kid's iPad. But they also branch out even further and see your YouTube habits, your kid's Minecraft account, when you check your favorite sports teams, even your online banking. All of this represents what your ISP is doing every single day.
It wasn't always like this.
In the past few decades, they've transformed from simple ISPs to sprawling tech conglomerates, providing their own TV, smart home devices, search, and email, allowing them to access the contents of your communications.
The FTC found that several ISPs were combining all of this data across product lines, using it to sort users into advertising segments based on inferred characteristics, including race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and political affiliation, and then sharing it with third parties. Think about what that means. Your internet provider, the one company you can't avoid if you want to get online, is building a demographic profile of you and selling access to it. And unlike Google or Instagram, where you can at least theoretically choose not to use the product, most Americans have one, maybe two options at most for broadband.
That makes watching you physically through Wi-Fi sensing, which we'll get to soon, easier to implement.
You can't opt out. You just pay the bill. A major 2021 FTC staff report examined the data practices of 6 ISPs that together control roughly 98% of the US mobile internet market: AT&T, Verizon, Comcast, Charter, T-Mobile, and Google Fiber. What the report found was that these companies were collecting massive amounts of data and sharing it with third parties without giving users a meaningful choice.
You can choose different browsers, but they all have to go through the router. But how are ISPs allowed to spy on you? You would think there would be protections in place because your ISP is the gateway to the internet, and at one point, there were.
In 2016, the FCC passed rules that specifically restricted ISPs from collecting and monetizing user data without consent.
I will take a backseat to no one in my commitment to network neutrality.
And a separate set of regulations from 2015, net neutrality, required ISPs to treat all internet traffic equally. No throttling, no fast lanes, no picking winners. Both these rules were dismantled starting in 2017. Congress used the Congressional Review Act to kill the privacy rules in April. Then in December, the FCC voted to repeal net neutrality, which took effect in mid-2018.
Now, the FCC votes on it, and then Congress has to vote on it, right?
Actually, once the FCC votes on February 26th, that is it.
Without consumer regulations in place, ISPs are free to collect near limitless data from users. Plus, they can slow down or even stop traffic whenever they want.
Once you understand that ISPs have both the data and the infrastructure,
it's easy to see how they can both use that power to stifle competition and also endanger lives.
In 2013 and 2014, Comcast slowed Netflix down so much Netflix viewers on Comcast were wishing that they could go back to VHS. Buffering became constant, customer complaints spiked, and Comcast's message was simple: pay us for a direct connection or your service stays broken. Netflix eventually paid, and its CEO called it an arbitrary tax that Comcast could impose because of its market power. Fast forward to January 2024, Netflix was back at the FCC, this time arguing that the problem is structural. In an FCC filing, Netflix pointed out that Comcast owns Peacock, a direct streaming competitor that had just hosted the first ever streaming exclusive NFL playoff game. Netflix's argument was that ISPs who also own streaming services have an inherent incentive to degrade competitors or inflate their costs. And then there's the Verizon firefighter case. In 2018, as the Mendocino Complex fire, the largest wildfire in California's recorded history at the time, was burning over 400,000 acres, the Santa Clara County Fire Department discovered that their Verizon connection had been throttled to 1/200th of its normal speed.
The state assembly is meeting to figure out why Verizon throttled data during the Mendocino complex fire.
Their emergency response vehicle, which they had used to coordinate fire deployment across the state, was essentially crippled. When the fire department called Verizon, the company confirmed the throttling and told them they'd need to upgrade to a plan at double the cost to restore speeds. Verizon eventually called it a customer support mistake. But that framing is actually worse than deliberate malice. It means that the system is built to extract payment by default, even from emergency services during a disaster. Lifting restrictions required a human to intervene, and that human tried to upsell them. Everything I've described so far, the data collection, the throttling, the leveraging of infrastructure, is a privacy nightmare. But it's a familiar one. It rhymes with what Google and Meta do. But ISPs have capabilities that those companies don't. Your Wi-Fi router can essentially be used as radar. Starting around 2012, researchers at MIT and University College London demonstrated that Wi-Fi signals, the same ones bouncing around your apartment right now, could be used to detect people through walls. The signals passed through drywall and concrete, reflect off human bodies, and return, carrying information about movement, position, even breathing patterns. According to an industry estimate from early 2024, at least 30 million American homes already have some form of Wi-Fi sensing available. One of Verizon's Fios routers now ships with human presence detection built in. Another company, Cognitive Systems, partners with more than 160 ISPs. Now, to be clear about what's deployed versus what's possible, most commercial Wi-Fi sensing right now is based on basic motion detection, essentially a sophisticated motion detector. But the research frontier is far ahead of that. Academic labs have already demonstrated Wi-Fi-based systems that can identify specific individuals in a group, reconstruct human poses through walls, and track people moving through buildings. The gap between what's in the lab and what's in your router is basically just a firmware update. And here's the part that should really unsettle you. The vast majority of Americans use the router that their ISP provided. That means your ISP controls the firmware. It controls what the router does and doesn't report back. Now you might think, I use HTTPS. My connection is encrypted. And that's partially true.
HTTPS stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. It's the secure version of HTTP, which sends the data between your browser, like Google Chrome, to a website.
HTTPS means your ISP can't see the specific page you're on or what you're doing there. If you're on Reddit, they can't see which post you're reading. If you're on a bank site, they can't see your account balance.
But the router can still see a lot, which websites you visit through DNS queries, which are the requests that translate website names into IP addresses, and other connection metadata. And by tracking your phone's connections to cell towers, they can see the volume and timing of your data traffic.
And if you've been paying attention to ISP's past behavior, the data mining, the throttling, the upselling of firefighters during a wildfire, there's no reason to believe they wouldn't follow you like the NORAD Santa tracker. And when you actually see it, you can see just how invasive it really is. Your ISP sits at the most privileged point in your entire digital life. It sees everything that enters and leaves your home. There are things you can do. Using a VPN encrypts your traffic so your ISP can only see that you're connected to a VPN, not what website you're going to. Switching to encrypted DNS over HTTPS, blocks one of the main ways ISPs log the domains you visit. And buying your own router instead of using your ISPs means you control the firmware, not them. But individual fixes don't solve a structural problem. The regulations that once kept ISPs in check are gone, and nothing has replaced them.